There's three things I'm about to show you, and I'll end on this. Biden signs the veterans exposed to an expansion of veterans benefits to help veterans exposed to burn pits. Okay. He also signed the $280 billion chip funding bill. And definitely my cat loves this. We're going to be rich. I'm kidding. Unfortunately, he does not mean Chip the cat. He means computer chips. Biden signs a $280 billion bill that is now a law that will finance chip manufacturing in the United States. Okay? Awesome. Also awesome. And then the $1 trillion by $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, right? He signed that last year, November 2021. What do all of these things have in common? Besides the fact that Biden got them done, Biden got them signed, Biden helped usher them through, and in some cases, specifically, he and his team wrote them up. They spent time crafting these bills, many of which were crafted during his campaign. That this is the stuff I'm going to do as soon as we get in office. They were already getting, a jump on this shit. They were already signed on to making this happen. It just took a while. And with the Republicans, the Republicans wanted to be optional so that when or if one of their crowd took over again and became president, they could just reallocate that VA money away from soldiers that have been affected by veterans who've been affected by Agent Orange and the others. They could just cut the funding off and go, no, get rid of it. This version made it permanent so that they don't have to go begging with a fucking bowl to the VA. All they have to do is show where they served, and we know if they were exposed. We can tell. We keep track of where our soldiers are stationed, where they served, what they were exposed to. And if they have if they're not affected by it, if they served near a burn pit but didn't get any of these problems, they'll be fine. But if they did, we know they were there. They don't have to prove to us. Yes, the Republicans wanted to make this discretionary so that they could cut it off when they took office. And the Democrats went, fuck you, it's permanent. We know this happened. We know these soldiers were affected. We know they deserve treatment, and they should not have to come fucking beg with a begging bowl to the goddamn VA. No, hell no. And that modification is why Republicans shut it down, because they wanted to be able to turn off the spigot and tell veterans to go fuck themselves when they take over. Now they cannot. So even if the Dems lost the House and the Senate this fall, the veterans who were exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances are safe. This is one of those kind of wins. This is not DACA by executive order. This is a law. They're safe now. That's a good thing. And Democrats fought for this and Republicans fought against it. Okay, but yes, and Jon Stewart has been long suffering on this issue since 9/11, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. And there's nothing. I got nothing but love for the guy. So put a pin in that for a second, because is any of this new? Is the burn pit exposure awareness or the 9/11 first responders illness thing? Is it new to the last 5 years, much less 10 years? Is it a mystery that Vietnam vets exposed to Agent Orange had cancer, got cancer from their exposure to Agent Orange? Is that a mystery? Does anybody doubt that? Does anybody? No, of course not. So none of this is new. None of this isn't stuff hasn't been around for a long time. That, by the way, the Republicans were pushing back against this kind of stuff when it first started coming up for this specific reason. One of the things that got this across the finish line was Democrats including Agent Orange and other burn pit stuff with the 9/11 first responder stuff to point to a systemic and wrong that needs to be fixed. All right, this one, $280 billion chip funding bill. Is there anything about this bill monetarily? Remember, Trump wants you to believe, maggots, you're sitting there. I got to tell you, best economy ever, right? Trump had the best economy ever, made the best deals, right? He was the best president ever. That's what you tell us. That's what you're explaining to us, right? Okay. Then why couldn't he do a bill like that while he was president? You think has the ability to create chip factories of the quality we need been an impossibility up to this point? Was there a missing something? Was there a reason why Americans couldn't have factories in the United States? Is there a reason why Trump couldn't have signed this bill exactly as it's written? Because Democrats would have signed on to it if a Republican had presented this kind of fucking bill. There's not a single reason, temporal, economic, or material, or intellectually, or technologically, why this couldn't have happened 3 years ago. Not a single fucking reason. Okay. What about this one? Biden signs $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill into law. Bipartisan. Democrats were all in for it. Republicans begrudgingly went along with it. Is there anything in the infrastructure bill that Republicans wouldn't have championed Trump for getting done had he done it during his office? Is there anything in this that Democrats would have struck or that Republicans would have struck if it was Trump's bill? Is there any reason this bill, other than Trump is a petulant child and didn't want to pass stuff if it required Democrats to do it, and that his own party wasn't interested in actually doing it? Is there anything keeping him from passing this? The PACT Act is based on an ongoing problem that's been happening for years. The chip bill is something we could have done 2-3 years ago. Easily. During Trump, same bill could have been put up and passed. All the Democrats would have signed off on it. Every fucking one. And according to them, we were doing so great economically, this wouldn't even be anything. You could do this, you wouldn't even have to add in the parts that pay for it. What about infrastructure week? Is there anything in this thing that if Trump had insisted they pass this bill in the form it was, that it wouldn't have gotten passed? It wouldn't have gotten the votes from the Senate and the House and gotten through? No, of course not. Biden just passed 3 things that help the country, help our veterans, and build a technological future for the fucking country. All 3 of which Trump, there was not a single thing stopping Trump from doing these things other than his own ignorance or his, quite frankly, his lack of desire to do so, his genuine inability to comprehend anything that didn't serve him. And his own kind of childish need to, and his supporters' desire to own the libs so much that they would fuck their own country and not do stuff that was just baseline good for it. That part amazes me. I'm proud that Joe Biden is doing this stuff, and I'm glad I voted for him because I want this kind of stuff to get done. This is great. This is genuine American greatness. The fact that we are already, because of Biden's actions, reshoring chip factories, 9 multi-billion-dollar chip factories, not some fucking Carrier washing machine plant in Indiana that never materializes, no bullshit Foxconn deal with China. Oh no. The highest quality computer chips, the kind that are used in satellites and space programs and defense systems and then high order electronics, made in the United States. There is nothing about this that technically Trump couldn't have done. He just fucking wouldn't. Same thing with the PACT Act. Trump could have burnished his credentials with veterans permanently by making this a priority while he was president. Trump could have passed the PACT Act or a variation of it that was probably, equally as strong, right? Even stronger. We were going to do so much better. If only in 2 weeks. He had 4 fucking years. He's the true leader of the Republican Party. And he did nothing but punt this shit and let Mitch McConnell drag it out and try to make it impermanent. To make sure that cyclically our veterans who got cancers and cysts and lung disease and all kinds of horrible things happening to them, including the brain cancer that Beau Biden died from. He could have made that funding permanent, like he did his tax break for corporations while he made his tax break for individuals temporary. He could have done it. Why didn't he? Nothing stopped him. Nothing. If he'd have presented this while he was being impeached, it'd have gotten fucking passed. In an hour. Same thing here. Trump could have reshored chip factories through this kind of funding. But he and his party don't want it, don't understand it, and would much rather make an industry based on the Russian system of just dig shit up out of the ground and sell it. And then ultimately, the single most broad American aspect of it, the simplest fucking thing should be infrastructure. Businesses can't work if trucks can't drive on across bridges that stay up. The addition of rural broadband projects to extend mostly into red states. Because understand, the rural parts of America are Trump land. Trump land, maggots. Did Trump push for broadband expansion into your states? No, he did not. He loves the poorly educated, but you gotta fucking stay that way. And if you can remote learn and get your degree without ever setting foot on a campus, when you live in the plain states, the flyover states that he brags about loving but doesn't fucking go to unless he's looking for money or votes. He didn't push this. When did fiber optic become possible? This year? Did Biden invent it? Did he discover it like Al Gore created the internet 2 days after? He was like, wait a minute, what about fiber optic? And everybody's like, holy shit, you're right. All of this was possible under Trump. He just didn't fucking care. He doesn't care. Because it would take almost no effort. The only effort in getting the infrastructure bill passed, in getting the chip funding bill passed, in getting the fucking PACT Act passed to secure VA funds for wounded veterans. The only thing in the way is Republicans. And even when it comes to the bill that's going to pass on Friday and that Biden's going to sign on Monday, more than likely, the Infrastructure Reduction or the Inflation Reduction Act. The only thing that squoze that bill down further is all of the Republicans and Republican-leaning voters in West Virginia and Arizona, where Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, whatever you think of them, would not get reelected, and a Republican would get the the job and would shut down fucking everything if they gave in to the entirety of the bill. If Trump is the maggot king like they say he is, if he's the art of the deal guy, if he's the masterful, you're fired, dude, and all that is true, and you guys still believe, you're still huffing his farts and saying it smells like fresh baked bread, why the fuck couldn't he get any of these things done while he was in office? Because it sure as shit wasn't impeachment or Russia, Russia, Russia. Because he got a tax cut fucking passed. Right? Biggest one ever. They were culling regulations, weren't they? I just don't get it from the maggot crowd. If Biden is this doddering old fool or the biggest criminal or he hates America and he doesn't want it to be great, why bother doing this? Why bother doing this? If you're a communist, why are you funding private industries to reshore chip factories to build industry in the United States that is not under the control of the government at all? And why, if you're meant to weaken us on the world stage, why would you do the biggest act to protect our veterans in decades, which is one of the ways, by the way, you improve recruitment, because people are less likely to join an organization that doesn't care for them if they've been injured while they work for that organization, period, end of story. So if you want to ruin the military, you wouldn't pass this. If you want to fuck the country and turn it into communism, you wouldn't pass this. And if you're trying to make sure America is a failure and the worst it's ever been and it descends into hell, you sure as shit don't improve the infrastructure. Why the fuck would you? I know I went on a late rant and it's an extra half hour, but I don't fucking get it. What's your argument here? Why would you try to cap insulin at $35 a person? It's not a patented drug. It won't put businesses like pharmaceutical companies out of fucking business if you cap insulin. You cap the price of ammo by letting the factories that make ammunition for the military sell the overages on the market, which artificially deflates the cost of ammunition. That's right. If you're a 2A purist, you're buying government subsidized ammunition, you commie. But if we do that with insulin, that's wrong. Explain yourself. And anybody who isn't in the media, who isn't asking these people these questions, explain yourself. What the fuck? Why am I the only one pointing this out? None of the big advancements that are good for business, good for Americans, good for our livelihoods and our lives were impossible under Trump. He just did not give a shit. And so that's why I'm a proud Biden voter. I'm proud of the man. I'm proud of what he's accomplishing. And I'm happy that it will even help people who didn't vote for him. It will even help people who fucking hate my guts for saying this. We will ultimately look at the Biden presidency like we now are smart enough to look at the Carter presidency and go, good and decent man who did everything in his power to try and make this country better and didn't fucking pat himself on the back and run victory laps for shit that you just do. Just happy to do it. Look what we accomplished together. You're goddamn right I'm a proud Biden voter. And any of these pricks who even carry around this Trump was better nonsense, I just need them to answer. Well, then why couldn't he manage to do this? Or this? Or this? Because it wasn't like we advanced intellectually as humans. We didn't get shot in the head with a new ray that made us able to solve problems better. There's an argument with social media. It may have gone back a couple of steps. But every resource to make these things happen was available. And in his argument, the economy was way better, so we had a lot more leftover money to do these kind of things. So the only real answer that I can come up with, and it's the one I'm going to stick to until some Trump sucker can explain an alternative viable theory, is that Trump just didn't give a shit. He doesn't. Doesn't give a shit about you. Doesn't give a shit about his followers. He's a tick on a dog. The only thing he cares about in terms of keeping the dog alive is just to keep it alive longer than he is so he can continue to leech off of it. He doesn't want the dog healthy. He doesn't want the dog happy. He certainly doesn't want the dog clean and devoid of parasites. So, maggots, feel free to at me and explain to me in your best gibber English or your translated Russian why the fuck Biden is teabagging the shit out of your dude and is accomplishing all these things that you think are no big deal, but he couldn't even fucking manage, even though he had every possible available resource to do it. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I know I went long, but I had to say it, and I'm not going to stop pushing back on this stuff, and I don't care if the TYT crowd wants to continually flush away these kind of things and the good that's being done for actual fucking people as if, well, of course he did this, but to them, in the same breath with the maggots, I say, fuck you. These things matter. People's lives matter. There is no reason that Trump couldn't have done these and he didn't. And therefore, the fact that Biden is doing them is meaningful and deserves credit. And if you can't give it to him, it's because you're selling something. And what you're selling is fear. You're a doom sprayer, and that alone removes you from any valuable conversation on helping people. Because that's not the goal. You just want some sort of like ego pin that your guy went down fighting. They didn't have to accomplish anything. They just have to yell the loudest and help the least number of people. And anybody who did the actual work to help some actual human beings is an equal villain to the person fighting it. That's morally reprehensible. That argument is grotesque. It's pitiful. If you can't see the value of 24 million people who got health insurance because of the ACA, and not to mention the children that got to stay on their parents' plan, God knows how many of them got sick during that time, were injured, got some kind of disease, and had insurance so they could actually deal with it, save their homes, save their livelihoods. Just that alone. I have no time for that crowd anymore. So the people who just want to shit on all these accomplishments as if they could have happened anyway. Well, why didn't they? Why didn't they? Because Joe Biden's getting them done with a fucking hair's breadth between Republican control. We had to wait on votes because one senator got fucking COVID. I love you guys in the chat. I appreciate you guys being here. And I know this was a secondary rant on this, but I had to say it. I will see you guys later this afternoon. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And remember, if you're ever presented with a choice that you believe is the lesser of two evils, say it with me now. Choose less evil. See you later.